Okay, so here's my issue, right? Here's my issue.
Sure.
Is that I'm not my claim is not that it can't be done, right? Because I definitely think it can be done. I definitely think you were doing it a few times during the match, right? I guess my claim is that it's like I don't think you can do it consistently. And the reason is because I feel like the timing, and I understand that it is practice and timing, but I feel like that timing is so strict that it's almost impossible for a human to do that just like perfectly consistently every time, unless like you literally practice it like years, you know what I mean, like only do that for your whole life. um and
No. Well, I will push back on that because there's a lot of one-frame links in other video games, and the one-frame links are a lot harder timing than the fuzzy guarding that we were doing there. Because uh, the tightest timing in that situation is the 2 frames that you have to Yome counter at the beginning.
mhm.
And 2 frames I can do usually fairly consistently if I practice the situation. I only have to practice for like a couple hours or so, and then I could do it fairly consistently. High level players, if you look at professional fighting game players that in execution heavy games, they are able to do 1 frame links pretty darn consistently in high pressure situations,
So
and those are the situations that you really want to look at.
okay, so what's exactly a one frame link? I'm not too
Sure.
savvy on all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. So a 1 frame link is that you only have 1 frame in which you are able to press the button and for it to be successful. If you are outside of 1 frame, if you're plus or minus beyond that, just the 1 frame that you can press that button, then it won't work.
Mhm.
And so the 1 frame links are kind of something that I do not like, in personally as a personal opinion thing. But some people like it because it generates a lot of hype or whatnot when you see somebody executing something like that. But yes, 1 frame links are can be done consistently by pro level
You
players.
think so? Because I have
Yes.
heard like with the description of the one frame thing, like I heard I think it was actually in a Core A gaming video or maybe somewhere else, and obviously he's not a pro, so I mean take
Yeah.
this with what it is. But I heard him. I think it was him. It might have been someone else, but someone on YouTube was talking about how apparently the one frame stuff. The cool thing about it is that like it's actually not able to be done consistently because it is so tight that like a human can't just like do that on a consistent level all the time because the timing is so strict. And that's sort of I guess where I'm coming from. I feel like it's sort of like, if you're waiting, it's like, can you wait perfectly every time 83 milliseconds exactly, just as an example,
Okay. So
because I know
then let me. Okay, so let me ask you this then. By consistent, do you mean you have to able to do something 100% of the time all the time?
no, I would say consistent, maybe let's say 75 to 80% of the time. I think that's fair.
Okay, so if you can do 75, 80% of the time, that's definitely 2 frames is easily done.
You think so?
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm. Okay.
So,
Okay. Yeah. No, I
yeah.
definitely was thinking about like in the practicing that we were doing. I was thinking
Yeah.
I can actually go back and like maybe like figure out the numbers once you started like appearing to do it and see if it was like around 75 to 80%. And
Mhm.
I think it might have been. And it's like,
I was probably lower than that. I was probably at best
you
2/3,
think so?
quite honestly. Yeah. Because like I said, I haven't practiced that exact situation, so I'm not used to the hit stun and hit pause, block stuns,
Okay.
on that specific situation. Whereas I'm much more consistent on like doing the micro walk punish with the lum.
Gotcha.
I'm
Gotcha.
probably around up to 3/4 on that one.
Yeah.
I'm getting better
Would you
on it.
would you say
So.
because like I guess one of my concerns is that let's just like make the assumption that the and I think that I'm seeming to more agree with you here, like based off of
Mhm.
like if there are, and like I obviously don't know too much about all the pros and stuff, but like if there are pros, and I'll take your word for it, that can do these things actually consistently, like to at least my standard, like 75 to 80%, then
Mhm.
I guess that's a fair point. So if we make the assumption that it is possible, do you think that's bad for a game? Because it's like, for example, if that's possible, then that means Rook basically has no options when you're on the ground or when you do that, right?
No, I don't think it's bad for a game. I do think if you have just well, okay, let me separate it into 2 different things. So, is it is it bad to have something like, say, a 1 frame link in a game? There will be differing opinions on it, and for me personally, I generally don't like 1 frame links because those require way too much practice, whereas a 2 frame link is actually more within range of most people.
Okay.
So just as an accessibility standpoint, I would say having the smallest window being 2 frames is fine. 1 frame, I personally, as a personal opinion, I don't like. But for people who like that execution heavy stuff, they having the 1 frame link is fine. That's their cup of tea, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
The second issue is when you say is if you're saying that it's bad for a game, he doesn't have any options. Well, that's not true.
Mm.
In any type of fuzzy guard situation, a fuzzy guard will cover multiple options, but at different times. So the reason that you use a fuzzy guard is because you can't actually defend against every single option on the same frame. So what Rook has to do is delay either the throw or you could delay the neutral or delay the strike, because the option that you're defending against first has to be delayed to match the timing of the next option.
So almost like a fuzzy throw, sort of.
Correct. You're a fuzzy attack.
You're
doing a fuzzy attack.
So basically, I guess you would probably have to like maybe more or less fuzzy your normal throw, then I would guess, because that's
absolutely,
because you're yomiing first, right? So then it turns sort of back into the mix-up where it's like, do they fuzzy guard or do they not?
Yes, that's exactly right, and that's where the layers actually come in. That's where a lot of people don't understand, as far as if you're not familiar with high-level play in fighting games.
I'm not, apparently, obviously.
Yeah. And I don't expect most people to be familiar with high-level play, but like when you're as a say a low level to like a low intermediate level,
I feel attacked.
You are. Yeah, when you when I mean like in competitive play. I'm talking about competitive.
I completely understand what you're saying. It's all good, man.
So you're getting used to the basics of the fighting games, like what are the basic options, what are the basic responses, and everything else, the basic spacing in the matchup. So then what happens is then you start playing against, say, like a high intermediate player or a high level player. And you realize that, wait a second, why are my options not working anymore? They're literally blocking or yomiing everything I'm doing. And it's because they don't understand about the frame data yet. They haven't really dived into the frame data and realized, oh, I could defend against this during this amount of time and then switch to defending against this amount of time if I'm playing against somebody who's not thinking about changing up their timing on their attacks at all.
Yeah, no, I had a similar experience with when I first started playing this game. I was playing some Satsuki, and like I was struggling with like dealing with like pressuring people on the ground, right? And and people were just like, just do a safe jump or a meaty, and I'm just like, what the hell is a safe jump and a meaty? And they're just like, oh well, here's what a safe jump is, here's what a meaty is, and they like showed me like video clips of it. I was just like, oh. And then now with Satsuki, every time someone on the ground, I either do a safe jump or I go for like a throw. Like I'll mix it up sometimes, but usually I just go safe jump. And then like it's like, what are you gonna do now? Like you have to guess whether I'm gonna do like a jump in, whether I'm gonna throw you, whether I'm gonna command throw you, whether like there's so many options, you know. It's just like I get a lot of new players with that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where the layers start coming in, is when you start realizing that the other player knows that you could do this and you have to respond with this. And then when fuzzy guarding comes into play, like you have to think, do I delay my attack now or not? So a lot of those.
Yeah, no, the fuzzy guard definitely. I think at first I was more thinking that it wasn't possible, but it does seem that maybe it is consistent. I think I'd still say I don't think you can never do it 100% of the time, and I do think that there's still like, although there's no variables in the input, I would say with all the other stuff happening in the game, and like, you know, maybe you're frustrated or maybe you're like struggling, you're not going to do it perfectly because there's so many things, right? So I would say I could see it though being. I could see it being 80 to 85% of the time now, though, like because it does seem like if you practice it enough and you know the frame data, you know.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right that it actually gets down to that, especially if you rattle. Because I mean, to do a lot of these high-level executions and high-level decision making, you do have to be in a good frame of mind. Yeah. And you'll notice the better as you get better, you'll notice when you start rattling the opponent because their timing will be off and they're not executing exactly like what they were earlier on in the match. And so people capitalize on them. That's where the real momentum comes in.
Oh yeah, hell, like I'm not even like nowhere near as good as like you or some other players in this game, and I've seen it happen where people like I'm doing things and they were playing just fine before, and then all of a sudden I'm just completely stomping them. I'm like, what happened? You know, like, what are you doing?
Yes.
Like, just focus. Like, you were doing fine. Stop pressing B, Setsuki. You weren't pressing B at all, and now you're only pressing B, and you're losing.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah,
So yeah, and that's it. So I do agree with you there. You can't ever do everything 100% all the time if you're not in the right frame of mind, or if something has thrown you off in an earlier match and your mind is going over that.
yeah.
So that's where a lot of that it can mess up people's execution.
Yeah, no, I've heard that a lot of people like they sort of praise Daigo for that because apparently he's just so calm all the time.
Yes.
Like he never gets rattled.
Yes.
Like he never loses focus, and it's just like how do you do that? You know, how do you stay
Correct,
that
yeah.
focused? I mean, hell, even when I'm just playing for fun against friends, I get rattled over things, you know, because it's very hard to stay in mindset when you're just losing, you know. Even sometimes when you're winning, like you'll win, but you don't. It's like a weird way to win, and you're just like, oh, like that shouldn't have happened, you know.
Yes. Yeah, having the mental fortitude to play through adverse situations, very, very difficult. That's a skill that you really have to hone and practice. It's a trial by fire thing. That's the only way that you'll ever really gain that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm curious here with the fuzzy guard stuff and whatnot. I know there's ways of practicing those things in say like other fighting games, but I couldn't figure out a way to practice it actually in this game in practice mode because like you can't make, for example, Rook, you can't make him do a throw because if you do the reversal, it'll always do the command throw. Is there a way to fix that?
Yes, on PC at least. So since keyboard is a viable option, what I would recommend is using a keyboard macro. That's what I do to practice situations.
Oh,
so,
that's a good idea. Like set up a keyboard macro where they'll always do that.
Correct. Yeah. So I have like my keyboard. I can program in macros or whatever for it, in which it'll randomly determine what options or what buttons it'll press, and so I just press that button when I'm in a block stun, and it'll do it for like say 2 seconds or something like that. So it gives me a lot of time to actually practice that situation.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So, yeah. And
I did just think of something actually. I'm not sure if this works, but it just crossed my mind. I think that if you I just thought of this too because I know that if the character doesn't have super meter, do you think that they would do it? I'm curious.
I'm slightly confused by the question.
So for example, if they one moment, let me do the reversal. So if they don't have super meter, because I think you can take away the super meter.
Okay, I see. Okay, so the dummy settings. Yes, if they don't have super, they'll go for their next reversal, like move, whatever that may be.
It does not. It does not work with Rook. Unfortunately, he doesn't do his command throw. That is quite unfortunate. But yeah, I guess you could practice it with the macro. That's unfortunate though that you can't. I wish they would you know, I mean, I talk about this in the Discord a lot, but I do wish they would at least add that where you could make them do specific attacks after block stun and stuff. That'd be kind of nice.
Yeah. I think that's in one of their want to do list.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Oh, I'm sure. And I know that they have other stuff that they're planning on doing at the moment anyway. So, but yeah, that's very interesting. You have changed my mind on this issue.
Well, I'm glad to open your eyes to the extra layers that are in higher level play in fighting games.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting actually. Yeah, it's damn, I don't like being wrong, but
it's a good learning experience. I've been wrong many, many times. I actually enjoy it because then it's like, oh, well, then now I have to learn something new and interesting.
Yeah, see, so. I like that, but then I'm also like, god damn, I have to learn something new now. There's more stuff I have to learn now. God, I thought safe jumps was the last thing I needed to learn.
There's always more down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, but overall, I've been enjoying this game. It's a lot of fun. This is like I think MK11 and this game are the first. Well, I guess Super Smash Brothers as well. Like, so Super Smash, this game, and MK11 are the ones that I put the most time into. So it's quite fun. I think this is the most 2D fighter I put the time into, aside from Smash. But I don't really consider Smash like a traditional 2D fighter. It's more of a
it's like a platform fighter.
Yeah,
so.
I call it like 2.3 or 2.5 because it has like platforms and ledges and things like that. So one of my friends called it a 3D fighter. I'm just like, Do you not know?
No.
You know what a 3D fighter is, right? Like that's
Yeah.
like Tekken and Soul Calibur. Like Smash is not a 3D
Right.
fighter, you know. But anyway, sorry, I'll let you go. I know that you probably want to play some actual Fantasy Strike now. So
Yeah, sure, not a problem.
yeah,
So
thanks so much for the
yeah, let me.
information.
Yeah, not a problem. Very welcome. All right, have fun.
Yep, you too.